In 2008, Buddhist monks and nuns and Catholic monks and nuns from around the world got together to share some of their wisdom and experience in the third great Interfaith conference at Gethsemane Monastery in Kentucky. Beautiful monastery, the oldest in the United States, 2,000-acre monastery. The monks support the entire community through production of their own food. They specialize in production of cheese and fruit bread. They also have had in residence there perhaps the most famous Catholic contemplative monk of the 20th century, Thomas Merton. He lived in a little hermitage there, which we will visit. And so we thought it was a suitable and appropriate place to meet and to talk about something that's even on the agendas of monks and nuns, that is the environment. And it was for 5 days, a very beautiful meeting. We are strange cousins. We recognize each other. Don't I know you? Don't you live in a similar fashion to me? You even have similar clothing. Do we think the same? Turns out we do. On certain topics we do, and particularly on the environment. So at the end of 5 days, we actually came together with a little statement. Very interesting. I'm sorry. Yes. Okay. I'm good now. So this is the statement that we came up with, and I will read it out to you. Simple and sufficient. A statement of understanding and commitment. We live in a time of environmental crisis and calamity, but also in a time when more and more people are coming together to respond to the suffering of the world. Our monastic interreligious dialogue has brought us to a new awareness of the social and spiritual relevance of ancient monastic traditions that have been sustained for millennia by Buddhist and Catholic communities. Together, we celebrate our common monastic values of reverence for the sacredness of all things, contemplation, humility, simplicity, compassion, and generosity. These virtues contribute to a life of nonviolence, balance, and contentment with sufficiency. We recognize greed and apathy as the poisons at the heart of ecological damage and unbridled materialism. Throughout the centuries, monastic life has inspired generous personal, social, and spiritual effort for the good of others. We give and receive in the spirit of gratitude. We acknowledge our complicity in damaging the environment and will make a sincere and sustained effort to reduce our negative impact on the planet. We are committed to take more mindful, universal responsibility for the way we use and manage the Earth's resources. We resolve to develop our hearts and minds in ways that will contribute to a sustainable and hopeful future for our planet. We renew our commitment to the sacredness of the earth, relating to it as a community, not a commodity. May our love for all beings in this world sustain our efforts, and may our earth be revitalized. This is our prayer and commitment. We also included 2 little poems from each tradition, one from an ancient cave-dwelling monk of the time of the Buddha, 25 centuries ago. The monks lived directly in nature, under trees, in caves, and in small grass dwellings. And also one from the Old Testament, from Isaiah. So first from Kashyapa the monk, a little remnant, a little fragment left from his enjoyment of the environment that he lived in. Spread with garlands of vines, places delighting the mind, resounding with elephants, appealing, those rocky crags refresh me. And from Isaiah, a strange and interesting and beautiful vision of nature. The wolf and the lamb shall graze alike, and the lion shall eat hay like the ox. none shall hurt or destroy on all my holy mountain, says the Lord. So, in both traditions, we have a radical and profound interest in nature and its preservation, and we are highly aware of the commitment to sustainability. So we met together, and here we journeyed out to see the hermitage of Thomas Merton at the end of the conference. If you aren't aware of Thomas Merton, he has very beautiful writings on nature, and his primary time was he died in 1968, but when he went to Gethsemane Monastery, it was almost the same as a medieval monastery. The monks were lying on straw mattresses, they farmed with horses, etc. And by the time he went on his last visit out to Asia, to the monasteries of Asia, they had modernized and so forth. So even in the effects of the ancient monastic tradition have been influenced and affected by the arrival of modern technology and so forth. But he had much to say about the preservation of nature, so we went out to his hermitage. It's a little faded, very small, maybe the central part, 12 by 16, the tiny house. A lot of important thinking went on there, and millions of his books have been throughout the world. And so we sat under the tree outside, we gathered, and there's Reverend Heng Sure, an American Buddhist monk for 35 years. He also happens to be a wonderful musician, so he composed some adaptations of Gordon Lightfoot's Early Morning Rain, a few tweaks, and we have a very spiritual song. So we all sang together, and it was a very beautiful moment. Here we have Birken Forest Monastery, just south of Kamloops, and this is an actualization of some of the ecological and ideas. So what this started out with was a search for land. We had something at the top of our list: out of sight, out of sound of people. We wanted remoteness, silence, but we're not hermits. We're not merely monks living outside of society. What that is an opportunity for guests to come and stay with us. So right now in the monastery I just left, there's a retreat going on, and there's 25 people there, from Oregon. And so people come from around the world for the silence, the space, the opportunity to reflect, and the opportunity to create an ecology of mind. And I think before we succeed in creating an ecology of the planet, we'll have to follow steps to an ecology of mind. So this was a building. We weren't actually looking for a building, but it was something half finished there in the middle of something that recently been sold off by a ranch to a private logger who had clear cut it, left it nice and stumpy, but it happened to have a beautiful marsh beside it, and we thought the structure was curious to us. It was a huge building in the middle of nowhere. I asked the realtor, how did this get here? He just said in an interesting way that the man who owned it had been a dreamer. Later we found out it was a grow operation. Now, it turns out that almost every monastery I know of in North America has taken over from a grow operation. We have two things in common. There's the out of sight and out of sound of people. You want privacy, don't you? However, what's growing here is not delusion. We are a grow-up as well. However, what we're growing is generosity, kindness, and clarity, not what's connected to the other type of grow-up, delusion, greed, and violence. So we converted it to suitably for a monastic environment. You can see out front there, if you want Ziri landscaping, if you want Ziri-scaping, it's water-free, Go to the ancient Japanese gravel gardens. It's a beautiful, calming, tranquil, invented by the monks probably more than 1,000 years ago, brought from China to Japan, and still one of the most famous products, aesthetic products of Japan, the beautiful idea of contoured gravel itself. The monks appreciating the stillness and space. It represents water. The gravel represents the water. And in the sense, the water represents the mind at peace. You see the waves, sometimes raked waves of energy through it as well. And occasionally, stones are placed. The stones are whatever you want them to be. What do you see? What are your values in life? You project that onto the environment. So these stones are, for me, the big one is the Buddha, lying down, near death actually, lying on his side. Between two trees. The Buddha was born under a tree in the forest. There he was enlightened in the forest and remained practicing in the forest, and then died in the forest. So the forest, the tree is the symbol of Buddhism. So the Bodhi leaf tree, the shade of the tree, is what we take refuge in nature, and is part of the whole concept. So we try to adapt this to the northern climate. We're not in India in the tropics. We're in Canada, and I've spent much of my life in the forest, and so we try to adapt this now. And I spent plenty of time getting the best advice in modernity, because monks, sort of professional renunciants, can learn to live in very radical ways, but we don't want it to be for us. We want it to introduce people as a learning experience to come to that environment, calm their minds, to refresh themselves, and to have a kind of living workshop where we can see some of the things they can do in terms of at home. So we're off grid, by the way. We produce our power through solar, and we have no connection to the grid. We produce pretty well 80 to 90% of all of the power we need to provide accommodation, food, and everything for 25 people. Off a fairly small array. It's only a 3.5 kilowatt hour array. But what we've done is, by careful monitoring, careful information, careful research, we live on 10% of the electricity of the ordinary Canadian or American. The ordinary Canadian American, around 11 kilowatts per day per person. Ours is 1. So, and we miss nothing. You're thinking, well, yeah, but you're doing without everything. No, we're not doing without anything. We have light. We follow the same principles as here. Natural daylight is the sensible thing to have, so we have window structures in every room, and including internal walls, we have light shining through into hallways and so forth. So all daylight times are not concerned for lighting. But we have replaced all of our bulbs with not just CFLs, compact fluorescence, but LED. That is the bulb of the future. We were talking about the opportunity for offering a prize for innovation. The Department of Energy, in fact, has taken up that very model and offered the L prize, $10 million for a light bulb that will replace the 60-watt incandescent light bulb. It has to be below 10 watts, has to last 25 times longer, and it has to cost under $15. And the prize is being already taken. So keep your eye on the next. When you go shopping at Home Depot, that prize is already taken. So LED is the bulb. They skipped over the mercury issues with the CFLs, etc. So we use things like that. We also use motion sensor monitors in the hallways, battery operated. And so our actual consumption is tiny, but it's in line with the very ethic of how monastics live. We're to continuously reflect on sufficiency and simplicity. So the two things that came out of the conference was an interest in simplicity and sufficiency. In fact, the Catholics, we were very much into simplicity. We hadn't reflected on the sufficiency, but we got to remember that in this world, We have to do a lot of reduction, but there are people in the world, lots of them, that don't have enough. Sufficiency for them means more. For us, it means less. Right? Sufficiency, simplicity, sufficiency, and of course we have to add sustainability, and then beyond sustainability. And I love the title of this whole conference as Beyond Sustainability. In fact, it really should be Beyond Unsustainability. But what is beyond sustainability? It is life. Sustainability is just enough. Internally, we need abundance. And this, what we're about here, and perhaps initiating, the monk's role in this, you've had all kinds of people come up who are experts in the technical aspects. The monks, all we can offer you is that when you face the frustrations and the problems of the environment, and a lot of disaster kind of news reports about the environment, with what inner emotions do you face this? Are you experiencing toxic emotions? With the frustrations of the impediments to the reduction of global warming, for instance? Is that a good idea, to try to purify the environment while experiencing despair, anxiety, fear? Aren't those damaging to that nice little ecology? Jeanette was saying that we are the earth. We are an ecological system as well, so there are alternate fuels to get things done. They have a lot of power to them. And so such things as patience, generosity, kindness, clarity, get things done. Anger and all of the things that can sometimes go with the environmental movement get things done as well, but they have a toxic side effect. So the emotions of this, the new greening of America, you know, remember the book, The Greening of America? It was a little mistake. It should have been the greening of the American. So it's the greening of you that will produce this greening. And it will be the same, it will be the means and the ends must be one. So the same lovely thing you're looking for out there in this building, in the air quality and everything, we're all rejoicing in the air quality. How is it after it passes through your nose? How's the air quality inside? That should be lovely, light, and spacious, because there's no difference between it out there and in here. So that's the monastic role, is to continuously remind people, include yourself in the environment, green yourself up. And I don't know how well you can see that, but there's the perfect building. Whoops, back to that. There's the perfect furniture arrangement. There's the perfect building. Probably every material is there 30 feet from the place it's built. There's a Buddhist monk in Asia. And if we can capture that, it would be wonderful. There's what a Canadian monk lives in, a tiny house. Carefully selected, mostly pine beetle killed, which we're surrounded with. There's the ultimate toilet, a bucket with sawdust in it. I searched high and wide. You can pay up to $10,000 for an alternative to a flush toilet. Every possibility. It's one of the great challenges. Maybe that should be the prize. Who can come up with the best and cheapest and simplest and sensible toilet? And I think this might win. Yeah. Pine beetle kill, filled with sawdust from pine beetle. And there we are, heading back to the monastery after our excursion in the world to talk at the TED conference. And that's it.